Hello and welcome to the Rebel Entrepreneur Summit, day one. I'm so excited that you're here with us. So I'm your host, Dawn Gluskin, and I just wanted to take today to kind of set up what you can expect over the course of the next 2 weeks, what you can learn, what you can take away, and also I wanted to take a chance to sort of share my story and who I am, what I do, and why I'm doing this. So, like I said, I'm Dawn Gluskin, and I am the founder of Bliss Communications. And my work there involves storytelling and copywriting and content strategy. So that's what I do on the surface. But there is this sort of like deeper level to the work I do, and it's really getting people to own their story, all parts of their story, and to share it vulnerably with the world. And when they do, magic happens. It really creates deep, authentic connection. In the business world, it allows them to build thriving communities, get raving fans, new clients. It's a way to get your message seen and heard. So, we all have these lovely devices, our smartphones, that we carry with us everywhere that we go. And they're great as far as staying connected and having information available to us. But, the thing is, we consume over 100,000 words every single day on these devices. So that is a whole lot of data, more data than we've ever consumed in our entire lives. And for that reason, your potential clients are not intentionally ignoring all of your marketing, all of your messaging. It just kind of happens naturally. So what does that mean for you? That means if you really want to be seen and heard and get your message out there, get your passion out there, whatever you're passionate about in your business, in order to do all of that, you need to stand out. And standing out, the best way to do that, I find, is to be yourself, to be authentic, to share openly. And I'll tell you why. So that might sound a little bit counterintuitive. I know, especially in the business world, we have been trained to think, you have to show up a certain way. There's the old adage, never let them see you sweat. So you don't want to talk about your failures. You don't want to talk about your struggles. Just put on a happy face. Talk about your successes. They'll see it as a weakness if you're vulnerable. So those are all really old school ways of thinking. But, nowadays people really crave authenticity. They want the real you. If you think about it, I think in the business world, or even just the world in general, we're going through a shift, right? So we're becoming more conscious consumers. If you think about certain corporations that are being held accountable, you think about the oil companies or pharmaceutical companies, Monsanto, biotech, there's companies that are being held accountable by the public because they're doing things that don't line up with their values, morals, ethics, beliefs, right? So that old adage is not true anymore. People really want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust, right? But also whose values line up with their own. So how do people know if your values line up with their own? How can they connect with you if you're not allowing them in? So in a lot of my workshops, I talk about vulnerability. And by definition, the word vulnerable means exposing yourself to harm or to being harmed. So intuitively we think, well, I don't want to expose myself. Let me just hide and cover it up. And that way I'm protected and they can't hurt me. And we take that into our business world too. We hold on to our stories. We hold on to our past. And we don't necessarily share it with the public. But when you do share it, it just opens up this whole other level where people get to see you as a human being, and they love and crave your authenticity. So this has shown up in my life. So how did I get into this work is actually an interesting story. I definitely walk my talk. I definitely started this business actually by owning my own story. So take you back a few years. So before I was doing this, actually, let me take you way back. I'll take you back to, let's say 5-year-old Dawn. So my 5-year-old self always knew that she was going to be a writer when she grew up. Ever since I was that young, I can remember just writing stories in the classroom, and everyone else was done with their assignments or off playing, and I'm still at my desk just writing away. And that went on and on all throughout school. And many teachers were like, oh, you're going to be a writer when you grow up. And I totally believed them all throughout my school years until one fateful day in, I guess it was senior year in high school. And a career counselor came to talk to all of us about what we were going to do after high school. What were we going to major in? What kind of career were we looking to go into? And they handed out this piece of paper and had all of these, careers listed in their subsequent annual incomes. And, on the top of the list, you had your doctors and your lawyers and your engineers and basically every other job in the world. And then at the very bottom of the list was writer. And I was that moment, I can't do that. I'm not going to make any money. And that moment in my life is something triggered. And I ended up deciding to major in business instead. And I started a long career in sales and marketing. Was always very successful in my sales roles. Whatever different products I ended up selling, for whatever reason, that was just something that I was good at. And I say accidentally because I had no background, but I accidentally got in through that career into an industry of technology. I was selling electronic components to manufacturers and just happened to be really good at that, and did that for a few years and decided to start my own company. So when I started this company, I had my firstborn daughter was 6 months old. She was literally on my lap with me while I'm typing away at the computer, building my business. And we grew really fast. We went from zero, mind you, I'm one person in my living room, to making $3 million in revenue a year. That was our 2.5 year growth, which is pretty remarkable. So I remember that time, it was crazy. I started growing the company and hiring people and getting out of the house and getting a warehouse and offices, and grew really fast, and people wanted to lend us money and help us grow faster. And it was crazy times. I was in the New York Times and a bunch of local publications, the Florida Today and the Space Coast Business. And people were wanted to know, how are you doing it? It was a time when the economy wasn't doing so hot. There was a lot of people were laying off and we were growing. So, those first few years of that business were pretty amazing. But then some things happened. There were some government regulations that came down the pipeline, and we ended up just losing revenue. So our sales numbers started to go down. Our expenses were up. Long story short, I tried everything. I avoided laying off people as long as I could. Eventually had to face that music, had to lay off my employees, which was a really difficult time. Cut back and just skin down. And I was so optimistic. We're going to get through this. We're going to sell our way through this. We're going to build it up again. And it didn't happen. So after probably a good 2 years of struggle, I finally was you know what? I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And we shut down the company, and I had to just count my losses, which were pretty significant. But mind you, I was still in my 30s. At the time I still am, but so I was all right, I'm young, I can bounce back from this. So, I had to stick my tail between my legs and go for a while, go work for one of my old competitors, which is really hard to do after you have your own company, to go work for somebody else. But I felt really ashamed during that time. Here I was put on this pedestal and just, given so much praise for what was accomplished, and then have to have lost it all. I felt like a failure to myself, to my family, to my employees. And it was just a really difficult time. I was, struggling financially. I had to build myself back up and just, try to get all my bills sorted out. And it was just a mess. It was a really hard time. And I spent a good 6 or 7 months just really depressed and sad and hard on myself. But I also did a lot of healing work. I do yoga and meditation and talk to a lot of great mentors and coaches. And through all of that work and the inner work, I was able to see things differently. I was able to see the gift that was given to me. And essentially, I had this wake up call. I was like, you know what, first of all, okay, I never said I want to sell electronic components when I grow up. I just accidentally got into that career. And it was supposed to be for a short time. I'm going to make some money. I'm going to tuck it away. And then I'm going to go do what I really want. So that's a story a lot of people tell themselves. And a lot of people tell themselves that story their whole life. And unless the universe whacks you in the head with a 2x4, like what happened to me, you can literally spend your whole life doing that until you're in your deathbed and you look back and say, oh my God, what happened? I never got to do that thing I really wanted to do. I never got to spend that time with my friends and my family. So that was my okay, thank you for, getting me out of there. And now here I am. And I'm doing what I love, which is writing. But the way that really came about, I started writing. I was like, I'm going to start to build a new business. I want to do copywriting. I want to do storytelling. I love writing. I'm going to blog. And, I just really immersed myself into that. But before I could really do it, I felt like I had this weight on my shoulder because not a lot of people knew my story. They knew my success story, but which is right? It's so much easier to tell, but it's harder to tell the struggle story, especially when you're still going through it and you haven't had the healing work yet. So it's easy for me to tell now because I've told this story many times and I've done the work, but, understand at the time it was really difficult, but I had, a coach and mentor tell me, she's like, you know what, Dawn, first of all, you're the same person that had all these successes. I still see you as awesome. I never saw you as anything less than awesome, despite you had to close your company. So what? And, giving me all these, examples of Walt Disney. He was bankrupt before he was big, and Oprah was rejected all these times, and blah, 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 blah. So everyone who is quote unquote successful has these stories and just really pumped me up. And I was like, all right, you know what? I need to get this off my chest, and I'm a writer. So I decided I was going to tell my story and publish it on Huffington Post. So essentially go from nobody knows to let me just tell the whole world. And that was scary. It took me probably 2 months to write a blog post that would normally take me 2 hours to write. And it wasn't because it was that hard to write. It was because I was in my head and I'm like, oh my gosh, am I really going to share this? Let me delete, let me rewrite it. Let me edit, let me stall, let me find every reason not to put it out there. And then the day when I finally hit the publish button and it was out of my hands, this energy, something just lifted. And then something magical happened. I had people emailing me from literally all over the world telling me thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being so vulnerable and so open. I'm touched by your story. It touched my heart. I have a similar story. I have something that I've been carrying around with me, and you inspired me to share my story and let that weight off of my shoulder. I had people who had never heard of me before, never worked together before, call me up and say, I just read your post. I want to hire you. I want you to write my story. I'm inspired. I have something that I haven't been told the world yet, and I want to tell it. And it was just magical. And I would get on the phone with people and they start telling me things and they're like, I've never told anyone this before, but it feels so good to talk about it and to get it out there. And that's when I knew that I was in alignment. This is what I'm here for. This is the work. I'm supposed to be doing this work right now. And it just feels so right. And it's not about how many millions of dollars in revenue. It's about how many hearts I can touch and about how aligned with my work. So that's how I became the own your story, vulnerable storyteller girl, because that's what happened to me. And it's magical. And I've seen it not only for myself, but for my clients. I've had people come to my workshops, The Power of Vulnerability, and they'll start telling stories with the participants that they know. I had a woman, she's never told anybody any of this in her life, and it told a group of strangers in this 3-hour workshop, and then left and went and wrote a whole new business plan when she got home. So, that's the magic of owning your story. It's good for the soul and good for business. And there's just power and vulnerability. It's our secret superpower that we all have to tap into. So now that you know a little bit about me and where I'm coming from in my story, maybe you can understand why the subject is so important to me and so special to me. And where Rebel Entrepreneur came from is because, especially in the business world, we really, like I said, we don't want to put it all out there. And you don't have to put it all out there, but it's good to have like some of your story. Like people want to know why you do what you do. I mean, don't you feel more connected knowing why I do this than, oh, she's a copywriter? Like, no, she freaking does this for a reason. Like, this is her heart and soul. This is her soul work. And then you probably feel more likely to want to work together. And that's how it works. Not just for me, it works for anyone who's willing to put themselves out there and connect. Other people are going to see their humanness inside of you. They're going to see their story inside of your story. Even though theirs is different, they're going to connect with the emotion. That's what storytelling does. It connects us emotionally. And stories we remember, like facts and figures go in the head. Sometimes they go in, they go right out. Stories connect with the heart and they stay there, and the heart has a better memory. So that's why it's such a powerful marketing tool. I mean, it's good for the soul first and foremost, but then it's like the cherry on top is it's good for business too. And it's good for sales and revenue and all that stuff too. So it's definitely a win-win. So anyway, all 9 experts who I, for the next 9 days, have chosen to interview all have their own incredible stories. And like me, it was at one point in time hard for them to share. They felt like, no, but I shouldn't tell anybody this. People are going to judge me. People aren't going to want to work with me. They're not going to like me. All these things, same things that were going on in my head before the first time when I shared my story. But despite that voice, there was something deeper that told them to share. And they did. And when they shared, like magical things happened. So I want you to hear all of their stories. And everyone too is going to train you how to do it. They're going to walk you from the before, like, oh my God, I'm scared, I don't want to tell anybody this, to the during, like how to get through it. And then the after, like the result. So you're going to get training on how to bring story and vulnerability to your business. And there's lots of free bonuses. You'll get in your email box every day opportunities to download, opportunities to win free coaching and strategy sessions. So a lot of great stuff in store for you over the next 9 days. So make sure you read your emails and make sure you click, make sure you listen. And it's not too late to share. So if you have other people who would benefit from hearing about this, please send them to therebelentrepreneur.biz. And thank you so much for being here and for listening and for letting me share with you. So have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye. Namaste.